What we'll do now is bring in the model. I'll go over to File. I'll click on Import, and I'm going to look for my building, which is this one here. Once I have that selected, I'll go ahead and click Import. And I'll just wait for a moment, and there's the building. And I simply want to place it somewhere on my site. If it helps, I'm going to snap it to this endpoint right here to begin. So I'll click it. And then I'm going to tap my space bar and I'm going to click off of my building. I don't necessarily want it right there at the corner. I want it to be set back a little bit, kind of fit into the site. Now that I have it placed there, and the reason I like to start there is because now I can select it. And now I can type M and click anywhere on that face and then move it back. So how far away from this sidewalk do I want it to be? The other buildings, I move them back around 20 feet. And that has a lot to do with setbacks that we have in the city. And I just wanted them to look like other typical buildings on the city. If you want this to be set back 20 feet, you can go ahead and do that as well. But if you'd like to place it back even further or bring it a little bit closer, that's entirely up to you. In my case right now, I'll go ahead and type 20 feet and enter. On my site, what would I like to do? How far away from the corner or how far away from the other lot do I want it to be? I'm going to actually take it all the way to the edge over here. So I'm going to type M and I'm going to pick from this endpoint and bring it all the way across there. And I'll click right on that line. And now it's right up against the property. Now from this point, I can go ahead and click anywhere that I want. Let's say, for example, on this face. And now I can move it back and I'll say 5 feet. I'll type 5 feet and enter. I'm giving myself 5 feet between the other property. And I know that I might have some windows over here and it's looking onto this property. Just keeping all that in mind. That's where I can place it. And of course, you can decide that, you know what, let's say you want it where it was a second ago, right? Undo that move and undo move again. Maybe you'd like to keep it 5 feet away from this sidewalk. So you can go ahead and click on that and bring it over 5 feet and enter. It's up to you. Wherever you'd like to locate this building on your site is going to be fine. And now you have a little better of an understanding of the building as it relates to that site. I can begin to add my sidewalks that will lead up to the entrance. Here, for example, I know I would like to have my sidewalk coming up to the steps. So here's what I choose to do. This property here, I made it into a group. So I'll go ahead and double click it and I can still see my building there. I will draw a line from this endpoint and it'll find the endpoint. I'll click on it and I'll take it all the way over here and let it snap to that edge. And then I'll tap my escape key and I can draw another line and notice what I'm doing. I'm hovering right here on this endpoint and I'm bringing it straight down. It's like I'm tracking it. And then I can click right there and it'll take my line straight across right there. It's not doing much yet. And let me show you why. So let me tap the escape key and then also my space bar and then click off of that group. Let me take my building for just a moment, right click it and hide it. This is all I've done. In order for me to be able to change this out to sidewalk, I have to draw a rectangle there. So the 2 lines are not enough. So I'm going to double click back on my property here. And then I can draw 2 lines, one on the left side and one on the right side, or I can draw a rectangle from one endpoint to another like this. By doing that, I'll tap the space bar. And now if I click on that surface, notice it's its own surface. And now if I want it to match the sidewalk, I can go ahead and use my eyedropper to sample this paint color for the sidewalk and then apply it here. And now I'm going to use my space bar to get my select tool back, click off of that object, And then I'm going to come over here to edit, unhide that last object, which was my building. And then feel free to add any sidewalks that you would like, perhaps leading from this deck to the sidewalk or leading to the back. Perhaps you want to put a garage there. All you have to do is just make a copy of this, or maybe you want to do something different. I'm going to leave that in your hands. I'm going to let you finalize this property on your own. I know that I would like to put a fence, at least along this back portion. Let me show you how I would do that. And also, I'd like to put some trees on my property. So I'm going to go ahead and take this tree, select it, type M, pick it from this point, bring it over here, tap the control key, and place it right there. And then what I'd like to do is make them just a little different size, one bigger, one smaller. And I think what I'll do is I'll take this tree over here. So let me tap my space bar, pick this tree, and then use the scale tool. And I'm going to scale it from this point up like that, just so it's a little bigger. They're still going to look the same, but they're different heights. So that helps a little bit. Tapping the space bar, and then I can continue. And by the way, all I did was to add the trees, but you're more than welcome to go back in there to the 3D warehouse. And I know I typed in trees, but I can also type in, let's see, shrubs. Keep my file size down, keep my polygons down, and it's the same land effects that I can use. And I'll take a look, and maybe the shrubs here are going to be okay. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm looking at it, and you'll notice here, one material, but look at the number of polygons. It's a lot of polygons, and look at that file size. It's still relatively small. I'm going to bring this in just to sample it. So I'll click on download, or actually before download, I can actually click on see more details. And it's going to show me the details. And in this case, I can actually click here so that it shows me the 3D model. And now I can orbit. Looks a little complex, a little sophisticated. So now I'm wondering, do I bring it in or not? I'll keep that in mind because it's telling me the number of polygons, the file size. It may slow me down. And if I do get a sense that my file is slowing down when I go to orbit or zoom or pan, I'll know that this might be the case. I'll click on download. Yes, to load straight in. And I'll bring it in here and I'll place it right about there. And then if it's a little too big, for me it is, I'll go ahead and tap the space bar and then click on the object and wait a second. Because look at how big that is. That is interesting. Okay, now I'm going to double click it. And it seems like there's nothing else going on. Okay, interesting. I'll click off of it and then click on it again. Notice, relatively big footprint there. It doesn't matter for what we're doing here. So I'm going to click on scale and I'll scale it down proportionally. In this case, uniformly, about that big. And then I'll go ahead and type M and I'll move it from there over here. Zoom it out, tap my space bar to get the select tool back, and then click off of that object. All right. Other things you could do is add some lights. So if I go back over here to my warehouse, I can type in street lights. And again, check that file size. Keep it to a small file size. And then the polygons also limit that. This one looks nice. I'm just trying to see what else is out there. Something that looks like it would fit into our urban landscape. And I think for now, I'll pick this street light. And I'll go ahead and download that. It doesn't tell me the materials or polygons, but it's a relatively small file size. So I'll go ahead and click on download. I don't want to answer any questions, so let me tap the escape key and click away from that. And it doesn't look like it will let me. So let me go ahead and close the 3D warehouse and start it up again. Maybe this one will do. and then click download. Materials, polygons. All right, this one might slow me down as well, but I'll give it a try. Same information. Okay, I didn't want to do this, but maybe it's going to happen for every single one of my downloads now. So for the industry, I'll go with architecture. Language, I'll go with English and click next. Select my interest, architecture, and finish. Maybe that's just something that is asked of when I use the warehouse. These are free models. They didn't ask for anything personal there. So I'll go ahead and download, load directly, yes, and I'll place it somewhere here. And you could see, it's a bit complex. And let me go ahead and click off of it. Actually, first my space bar to get my select tool, and then click off of it. Look at all this information. So this might be a little too much. And if I look closely at this, if I leave this street light in there, it just may complicate my model or take away from my model because of all these extra lines. I'm actually going to take that and delete, or better yet, I'm going to click edit, undo load, just to take it completely out. I want something simple and straightforward because I don't want anything to really be competing with my model, because eventually I'm going to have images of my model where I'm looking at it from the outside right here. I'll get some images inside as well. I want to make sure that this is highlighted, the building itself. I digressed a little bit there, but let me go ahead and drop in my fence along the back here. So here's what I like to do. I'll go ahead and draw a line, and I'll simply start it. Let's see. Actually, no, let me not do a line. Let's see. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, I'll do a line. And I'll start from this endpoint over here to that endpoint. And then I'll take it over this way. And let's say I want that length of my fence to be 40 feet. So I'll type 40 feet and then I'll enter. And then I'll continue over to this side and then over here. And what I've done is I've created a rectangle. Let me go ahead and tap the space bar. And this rectangle, it's sitting there on top of my property. And if it gets in the way, right, if it's difficult to see, go ahead and take that property, select it, right click it, and hide it. And if the other properties or anything else is in the way, go ahead and hide that information as well. But right now, I simply want to deal with this surface. What I'll do now is go ahead, and it's highlighted, and I'll go ahead and use the offset tool. So I'm going to offset along that edge, and I'm going to bring it in because I don't want my fence completely on that edge of the property. I just want to bring it in by about 2 inches. So I'm going to type in 2 inches and enter. And it gives me that edge. And that's what I wanted to see. And I'm going to continue. This time, though, tap the space bar, and now I'll click on this surface. Now that that surface is selected, I'll go ahead and click on offset. I'll pick this edge, and I'll bring that in 2 inches or whatever thickness you want your fence to be. So I'm going to type 2 and enter. Now that I have that, back to my space bar, and then click off of that. I want to do this the right way. So let me click off of it. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is simply come in over here, take this inner surface, click on it, and then delete it. Take this surface, click on it, and delete it. And I'm left with just one surface here in the middle. That's what I wanted. And now I'm going to use push-pull. So I'm going to type P and push-pull this up the height that I want it to be. And let's say that height is going to be 6 feet. So I'll type 6 feet, enter. That's what my fence would look like. Now, I don't want a fence on this side. So what I'll do is I'll simply take that surface, click on it, and push-pull it back so that it meets the other side like this. I flattened it out. And then the next thing I need to do is simply type E for erase and erase this line. And then I'm all set. And I know I have some extra information still floating here. Let me clean that up before I forget. So I'm simply going to erase this line here, tap my space bar. And I know that I start with a rectangle along the outside. So if I double click, it only picks that line. I need to triple click. and now it picked all of the lines. You see that? Because they're all connected. And now that I've done that, I'll go ahead and tap delete. And then before I forget, I'm going to triple click, right click, and make a group. And now click off of it and go back to edit, unhide, and last. So that's my fence. And now what I'll do is give it a material, and I'll go over here to my materials and I'll see what's available. And I'm looking for, let's see, under landscaping, perhaps. Here's a fence. It's an old wood fence. That can work. What else do I have? I have a straight metal fence. So if I click on that, here's what I get. Now, if you want to go with this, it's fine. But then what you would do is you would actually, give me 1 second. You see how it's actually placing the material on both sides. I don't want it to have two sides like that. If I want this to be transparent and look like an actual fence, I mean, you could leave it, but to give it that other, I guess, a little better look, go ahead and tap the space bar and then double click that group. And then all you simply have to do is erase this line here. And you see how now it's just one single line, one single face there, and I've applied that material to it. And that looks a little better, perhaps. And I'll let you decide. But I just want to show you what you can do there with those fences. And you can see through it. I'm going to leave mine alone. So I'll go back to edit, undo, erase, and I'll undo that. And one more undo, because maybe this is the material I want. You can look through here, see if there are other materials to pick from. I want to check and see if there's anything under wood. So if I go to wood, no, those may not work. I just had to check. Those are floors, lights, anything else. And you don't have to make it a real material here. You can actually simply pick a color. That's fine. You painted your fence. I can click on colors or named colors, whatever you'd like, and just pick something. I can pick this color here and apply it, and that's the fence. It doesn't quite relate the way I would like it to, so I'm probably going to change the color to maybe this one here or something else, a little lighter. I'll let you decide. Let me try something here real quick, see if this will work, just to show you something. I'm going to go back to landscape fencing. I'm going to see if there's something else that's ground cover. There's this wood fence. Then there's also this one, fence with lattice. So I can pick this fence material like that. And I believe I can click on edit. And here's the color wheel. I can change the brightness on that. You see? Or I can make it a little bit darker. Or I can change that overall color like this. I'm just editing the color here that is being applied to this material. You can modify that just like I'm doing here. And just know that even after you bring it in, I'll show you later how you can update this. In fact, I can right click this right here and there is a way to reload it, and I can reload it and it will bring in a newer version, very similar to the way we use XREFs. Just keep that in mind.